Welcome to the Mystical Mermaid Lounge podcast, a space where all spiritual seekers are honored and celebrated. This podcast was born from the journeys of your hosts, who have each faced her own dark night of the soul, but they've emerged with an unshakable belief in divine connection, cosmic inspiration, and her true life's calling. Join us on a journey of personal growth, transformation, and magical self-discovery. Your first co-host is Chloe Brown, a gifted intuitive empath and shadow work life coach. Your second co-host is Keone Starr, an intuitive energy worker and acclaimed past life regressionist. The Mystical Mermaid Lounge podcast starts now. Today's episode, Soul Contracts, explores the spiritual concept of pre-birth agreements. For those who may not be familiar, this concept presumes that every soul has chosen to incarnate or reincarnate to experience challenges, pain, loss, and at times even violence for karmic and soul growth reasons. Many believe these experiences clear our karma for spiritual evolution. Chloe, please tell us about your beginnings and what ultimately brought you to search for your divine path.
First and foremost, I honestly have an amazingly wonderful life. That's definitely not to say, though, that I don't have my moments. And I am a Pisces, so I do get emotionally wrapped up sometimes. But as I continue to work on myself and recognize where those issues are coming from, or as I refer to them as shadow work, it becomes a lot easier. I think I should probably start by saying I came into this world with a mom who was not ready yet to have a child. She was honestly just a child herself. She was 16 and a runaway, and we'll just say she had the nightlife style, and that's how I came about. My biological father was gone, and I just recently discovered I was raised a couple of years with my grandmother. And then I moved back across the United States with my mother, and we lived a very gypsy lifestyle. We moved around a lot, not just within a town, but from city to city and state to state all of the time, constantly relocating. And in those years, I think I really recognized or programmed myself, rather, to believe that I was not good enough, that I wasn't valuable enough, I wasn't pretty enough. I certainly was way too fat growing up, and all the nicknames and horrors that come with that, right? I also grew up internalizing that financially stable and financially well-off individuals must be evil, because I just couldn't understand how we couldn't have any of that and they could have all of that money and prestige. Then I just decided I was going to go to the military and try to escape all of that. So I did, and I was one of the very few women in my unit. I definitely experienced what I would now call military sexual trauma, or MST, for those who don't know, multiple times within my chain of command. Eventually, I did end up getting out. I had a chief who believed that women were put in his military to serve him, and I'll leave it at that. So I got out, which really kind of broke the only dreams I had at that time, because I really truly thought that the military was my answer to everything. It was my free ticket out. It was a moral and integral way to live. It was honorable, which were all of the things I had not experienced in childhood. But in reality, not to say those things weren't true, but my experiences made it really hard to believe those could be true. So it shattered all my dreams of being a military lifer and, being told that I could never do this, I could never do that. made me feel like I was in a box. So when the military was no longer my way out, I didn't know what else to do. So that was rough. And then I ended up in a excessively toxic marriage, and that relationship in total was just short of 10 years. And he was also a fellow veteran, and that was even more tumultuous than everything else I had experienced previously. I just couldn't understand it. I feel like that was a lot of my rock bottom. There was so much physical violence, so much mental abuse, and I didn't see the physical violence. It was so indirect that it didn't register you're a battered woman. It didn't matter how many friends I had tell me. It didn't matter how many outsiders recommended women's support groups for domestic abuse. I just thought it was all me making it look worse than it was. So I definitely hit a rock bottom. For being totally transparent, that was the only time I've ever been suicidal, and that was my red flag. I knew I needed something different. And I heard my spirit guide tell me, get out. He's going to kill you, not in these words, but he's going to kill you. So either you die here or you're going to die trying. And I followed that. I just had this weird blind faith. I had no money. I was spiritually bankrupt, financially bankrupt. I needed a divorce, which there was all sorts of shame to go with that. And every time I would try to involve the legal system, he would get away because he was the military veteran. And I was so embarrassed about what I had experienced during my military experience that I never admitted to those things. So I was constantly in hiding, trying to figure out my reality at all points.
I heard you say that your spirit guide absolutely directed you to get out of that relationship. But were you questioning along the way? Was there a spirit guide? Did you have a higher power? We're all have little hits of intuition and such along the way, but knowing where that originates is often a major question.
Yeah, that is a great question. You're right, actually. I only can call it a spirit guide now. Funny enough, at the time, I was researching if nut houses or crazy houses were still a thing in the new age. I wasn't sure if I was about to get committed either to prison or a mental institution because I was so full of rage. I didn't exactly know what it was. I just knew that it was survival. And I think I deeply knew in my heart and my every bit of me in my soul, I just knew that if I didn't die trying to get out, I would die in that home and maybe not from my own hands. And I didn't trust myself to even know that difference at that point.
When I've experienced something traumatic and questioned why, I've been told by many in the spiritual community that we wouldn't know or appreciate the good without having experienced the bad. You've had a lot of experiencing the bad. What do you make of that comment? Do you have to have the bad in order to appreciate the good?
Oh man. Well, my knee-jerk response is, ooh, does that mean I'm getting ready for all sorts of good things? And the answer is yes, because my life is so wonderfully beautiful now. And it took a lot of work, but it took that dark night of the soul. And I think it's in so many layers for me. Part of what I haven't touched on a whole lot is there's so much ancestral trauma in my family line that I think it kind of plays a role into that. And I feel like I chose to be a part of this family in some capacity because I knew I could stop the pattern. I knew I could break the heartache. I could stop the anger from trickling down to the further generations of our family line. And I could do it by working on it within my own self and showing that example and displaying nothing but kind and loving and speaking my truth. And I think that those are, for me, the layers because I have gone through so much roughness and terrible shit, if I may be so honest. But I've also experienced some beautiful, beautiful, really awesome, wonderful, amazing moments, even in between all the muck. So I did have to wade in the mud to appreciate the beautiful pasture on the other side and the beautiful wildflowers that came up.
Transformation means a change from one thing to a shinier, newer thing. So, what was your ultimate lesson and how did you change? You were able to experience such negative things and then come through to greener pastures because, as you say, you wanted to, you chose to, as part of healing your ancestral line. But was that the ultimate lesson that you learned?
No, I the ultimate lesson that I learned is honestly only very clear to me this last year, and it is truly trusting and believing in myself. Because through all of those experiences, I took their responsibility away from them. I tried to control all of the situation after the fact by taking ownership of things that were not my fault. Therefore, I applied shame and guilt to myself. So for me, I had to trust myself and know that if I do listen to my instincts, my intuition, my spirit guide, my God, my higher power, my deity, whatever it is I feel like I'm communicating with, which I do feel like is ever evolving, I think they've got my back and they know how to take care of me. And if I continue to listen to myself, I'll be fine. I'll be great. I'll be better than fine.
I think that's so huge because a lot of what I heard in your story was that even as a child, from childhood all the way through military, and even in your first marriage with abuse and people telling you that you were abused, that you couldn't trust the reality that was in front of you, almost like your feelings weren't valid or didn't matter as much. I think you even said that others were trying to get you into a support group for battered women, and you felt that you were perhaps characterizing it over the top or exaggerating in some way.
Yeah, that question is so powerful. It literally just brought me to tears because I do resonate deeply with what you're saying. I did always feel trapped and I did always feel limited. And what I've recognized now is I was the one in my adult life that was limiting and trapping myself with these belief systems that were not mine. And now I have the pleasure and opportunity to reprogram and rewrite those. And that feels limitless, something I've never felt before.
That ability to trust yourself and the reality that you are interpreting is a major life lesson, not just for you, but I think for a lot of us. Even as we're getting out of childhood, we've been told, you have an imaginary friend. Oh, honey, that's cute. No, you don't really. They don't exist. Just the fact that you had so many negative experiences during your childhood and young adulthood and have learned to trust yourself is just huge.
Well, thank you. I did have so much intuition and I don't know if it was spirit guides or something was always with me, and I think that's why I was always searching for some sort of faith system that resonated deeply with me because throughout all of those years, to out back almost to every memory I have, I can always remember just knowing what was going to happen the next day or just knowing if a certain event was going to happen. And I always referenced it as my deja vu sense because I didn't know what else to call it. And so, I think that helped create a bigger divide between my mother and I because it made her very fearful. And I don't think that really went away in her mind. It continued to grow more fear and separate us than bring us together. But it also opened my mind up to what else is out there that I don't have to listen to what my mother is telling me because it's not true. And I have something else that nobody else sees, hears, or feels telling me this. And so it was a lifetime of mixed identity, not recognizing what was reality and what wasn't, and constantly being afraid I was going to get committed because in my mind, I must have a major mental illness.
The fact that you were tied so closely to your mother in this story of major periods of trauma make me wonder if you believe the soul contract that you had was tied to her.
I do believe that. I cannot speak to what her part of that could be and what that looks like for her, where I am at now and where I believe things are currently at this moment anyway. I do believe that we were intertwined, and I think we came here to help break that ancestor trauma. And I don't think she did it. I think she magnified it and pushed that ball down the hill to make sure it caught that momentum to take out the people at the bottom. And unfortunately, that was me, but it didn't work.
But you took that momentum and instead of running with it, you course corrected.
I believe that's why I'm here. That's why trusting myself is so powerfully important. And now that I've, worked through this with lots and lots of therapy and amazing support groups, and I've built this amazing, beautiful tribe that I have, it became incredibly clear to me that at this point, now that I have these tools, obviously continue working on them because that'll be a lifelong thing. Hopefully, I'll continue learning even after this physical life. But along with that, I really want to help inspire and motivate and help, even if it's just one person.
So you are interested in becoming a shadow work life coach. Are
Yes,
these the reasons that have given you that drive and that motivation to help others?
yes, I am very, very excited. And yes, I am in the process of getting a certification to be a life coach. I am very excited about it. Of course, I learn so much every day, but I love that. So, I'm very excited about being that life coach. And I do think for me, specializing in what some call the shadow work or the dark night of the soul really speaks to me. And as you guys can hear through most of my journey, it has been, troublesome. And I'm aware that this happens on so many levels to so many people that I just want to help uplift people and bring them together through structured, organized help, which therapy is amazing. I definitely recommend therapy. But I think there's different approaches to different aspects and things that we are going through in life. A life coach has been pivotal in so many people's lives and careers that I would absolutely be honored to be a part of that.
I can't think of anything more karmic clearing than that. But to get your opinion on the dread some people have about clearing their karma for this go round, or else having to potentially come back and redo their life over again and hopefully learn the correct life lessons, or at least this is a spiritual concept that we've both heard out there. What are your thoughts about having to come back and do it all over again? How do you feel about having a repeat of all of the experiences you've had to date?
That's a hard pass. Um, I, that's a hard one. I don't think I would want to do it again. I'm very grateful for what I have gone through because sometimes I can't even recognize that that was me and that I participated in those elements of my life, good, bad, or indifferent. I really would rather not redo it again. That would be great. Um, but I would be totally okay with moving on too. I think for me, I really do love my life now, but I'm also very excited to reunite on the other side with some folks.
So you're talking about crossing or transitioning to the spirit world. Not
Yeah.
a lot of people are willing to say that out loud or feel that. So what drives you to say that?
Oh, there's so many people that I feel in my day-to-day life that are not in this physical realm that I'm kind of excited to reunite with some of them and meet some of them. I do feel my ancestors to some capacity regularly, and I'm just excited to be able to reunite with those loved ones one day. But I'm not in any rush.
Understood. There are many people who can relate to Chloe's feelings of hopelessness and purposelessness that she has experienced throughout her life. But Chloe, you took the frustrations that you had, the pain that you felt, and you transformed your life. You are a beautiful, warm, and funny woman that uses and will continue to use, especially in this next chapter that you're pursuing, your experience to help others as you coach your clients through their shadow sides and self-limiting beliefs. Do you have anything to share to help us remember that our current challenges are simply that, challenges, hopefully not life sentences? And from challenges, we grow stronger. What do you have to share with us that can keep us hopeful if we need it?
For me, a little invocation or a little mantra is pretty important daily for me in communicating with what I would reference my spirit team currently. So I would like to leave the one for anybody who feels anything from what my history has spoke to. I release the hold of my past, knowing it does not define my worth nor my destiny. I trust the strength and the wisdom within me. I am who I choose to become. And for me, that's powerful.
I love that. Thank you, Chloe, for sharing your story with us. And thank you, listeners, for streaming in.
Thank you for joining the Mystical Mermaid Lounge podcast. Constructive and positive feedback are always welcome. Drop us some fan mail at mysticalmermaidlounge@buzzsprout.com or email us directly at mysticalmermaidlounge@yahoo.com. Finally, we do not accept sponsorships or ads so that we may bring a less distracting message to our listeners. So, if you are just as passionate as we are about educating and supporting spiritual seekers, then please brew some tea or Joe and pour us a cup at buymeacoffee.com/mystical mermaid lounge. Thanks again and catch us at the next high tide. Bye-bye.